This tanker did not sail into Malta. She was dragged in, sideways, by 2 destroyers tied to her ribs. Her back was broken. There was half an aeroplane on her bridge. When his officer reported a second plane had crashed onto the ship, Mason said this: "Oh, that's nothing. We've had a Junkers 88 on the foredeck for nearly half an hour." An entire island was days from starving. She was carrying the fuel. 9 of the 14 ships that sailed with her never arrived. Malta is a rock, a small one, sitting in exactly the worst possible place. Every Axis ship supplying Rommel sailed past it. Malta spent 2 years mugging them. The Axis response was simple: bomb the rock until the rock stops. One Royal Irish Fusilier remembered it. He went out at 10 stone 9 and came home at 8 stone 6. They lined their boots with cardboard because the boots had worn through. On the 10th of August, Malta's food manager wrote down the number. The absolute last issue from the island's reserves would come in 5 days. On the 15th of August. After that, the plan was to start eating the horses and the goats. The animals on the island were expected to last 5 to 10 days. London had a term for what came next. They called it the target date. So the Royal Navy built the largest escort ever assembled for a convoy. 2 battleships, 4 carriers, 7 cruisers, over 30 destroyers, all of that to protect 14 merchant ships. And really, to protect one of them. The Ohio was American. Built in Pennsylvania, owned by Texaco, the fastest big tanker afloat. Texaco's Marine Department cabled London, insisting she was not to leave port. The American government requisitioned her anyway and put her crew ashore against their will. Her sister Kentucky had been crippled by a near miss on the last convoy. So in Glasgow, they remounted Ohio's engines on rubber bearings to soak up shock. Then they filled her with 11,500 tons of kerosene and fuel oil. Every master carried a sealed envelope he could not open until the 10th. Inside, the First Lord of the Admiralty wished them Godspeed. Seafret's report calls this, and I quote, "very highly appreciated." 3 hours later, the Mediterranean started taking the convoy apart. At 1:15 on the 11th of August, the carrier HMS Eagle was hit. A German submarine had slipped under 13 destroyers. None of them got a contact. 4 torpedoes hit her port side within about 10 seconds. She rolled over to port, and she was gone in about 8 minutes. 927 men were pulled out of the water. Sources still do not agree on how many died with her. The Royal Navy's own historians say 131. The War Graves rolls give over 160. Some counts run higher still. Nobody agrees. Most of them died in the machinery spaces far below, with no way up. 9 were Royal Marines bandsmen, who, by tradition, worked deep inside the ship. 12 fighters went down with her, a quarter of the air cover, on day 1. A destroyer called Ithuriel depth-charged an Italian submarine to the surface, then shelled it, then rammed it. She wrecked her own bow and knocked out her own submarine detection gear. Seafret's report calls the method quite unnecessary, in writing, forever. Then, Italy sent 6 cruisers to finish the convoy off. This should have been the end. Right, we need fighter cover over the fleet. Can't. My planes are busy escorting my other planes. The Luftwaffe would not lend them one fighter, so Italy recalled them all without firing a shot. On the way home, one British submarine, HMS Unbroken, found them and hit 2. Bolzano caught fire, listed hard over, and was run aground on an island. She was never properly repaired. The fleet that ran away still had 2 cruisers put out of the war. Nobody ever sent Kesselring the bill. Just before 8 that evening, the Italian submarine Axum fired 4 torpedoes. She hit 3 ships with 1 salvo. Cairo's stern was blown off, and she was sunk by her own side. The Ohio took a hole 24 feet by 27 in her side. Burning kerosene poured out of the fractured tanks and sprayed across the deck. Her gyro compass was destroyed, and the magnetic compass knocked off its bearings. So they steered by hand from the stern at 13 knots. I'm fine. This is fine. Where's Malta? That night, Empire Hope and Glenorchy were bombed and sunk. The contemporary report on Glenorchy reads, blowing up with no survivors. Next morning, the Weimaraner was hit. Her deck cargo was aviation spirit. More than 80 of her crew of about 100 died in seconds. Ledbury drove into the burning sea to pull men out of it. She pulled dozens of them out, many from the ship behind. Their own ship was never hit. 14 of the men who jumped were never found. That morning, her gunners shot down a Junkers 88. It came down on her foredeck and stayed there. At 9:25, the Stukas came specifically for the Ohio. Ohio and the destroyer Ashanti shot one down between them. It went into her starboard side, forward of the bridge. Half a wing landed on the upper bridge. The bomb never went off. Are people just going to keep leaving these on me? 2 sticks of bombs straddled her, and she was lifted clean out of the water. The boiler fires blew out. An electrician switched everything back on. The engineers relit the furnaces and had her at 16 knots in 20 minutes. 16 knots, with 2 aircraft attached to her. At 10:50 on the 13th of August, the Ohio stopped for good. The crew went across to the destroyer, Penn, and the ship still would not sink. Penn took her in tow with a 10-inch manila rope. They drifted backwards. "You are the heaviest thing I have ever met." Meanwhile, a live torpedo snagged on another merchant ship's minesweeping gear. The official dispatch handles this with the phrase, "subsequently cleared safely." That evening, Port Chalmers, Melbourne Star, and Rochester Castle reached Malta. 3 out of 14. At dusk, one more bomber got a bomb away. It landed almost exactly where the torpedo had, and it broke her keel. An Italian submarine holed her. A German bomb broke her a day later. Not a U-boat. They abandoned her for the night and expected her gone by morning. She was still there in the morning. She kept swinging to port, so they tied Ledbury to her stern as a rudder. Malta then sent out a rescue tug called Robust. Robust arrived and hit Penn. The report disposes of her in one sentence. After bumping Penn and damaging her, she was not employed anymore. A 1,000-pound bomb in her wake parted the tow and opened her stern. And she still would not sink. Would you consider sinking, just as an option? No. So they gave up towing and lashed a destroyer to each side. Ledbury shoved her bow round the corners. The whole thing moved at walking pace. Brisbane Star limped in on the 14th, holed in the bows. That made 4. At 6 on the morning of the 15th, Malta's tugs came out. The bastions were packed. People had waited there for days. At 5 to 8 in the morning, she came into Grand Harbour. It was the feast of Santa Marija. It was also the exact day the island's food reserves ran out. A band played as she came in. 2 of her own gunners wrote this down. It made us feel very fed up because we did not ask for praise. They berthed her in shallow water and pumped 10,000 tons of oil out. The last drops of oil left her, and her keel settled on the bottom. She sank the second she was finished, not 1 minute before. The official manifest of what the convoy delivered includes 90 carrier pigeons. 90 pigeons. I want that in the record. 14 merchant ships sailed. 5 arrived. Ohio, Melbourne Star, Port Chalmers, Rochester Castle, and Brisbane Star. The Navy also lost a fleet carrier, 2 cruisers, and a destroyer. More than 500 merchant Navy and Royal Navy sailors and airmen were killed. On the Ohio herself, Gunner Peter Brown of the Royal Artillery was killed. Seafret's report called the losses regrettably heavy, and the ships arriving disappointingly small. He closed it by saying they were disappointed and would like to try again. 2 days later, Malta's bombers crippled an Axis supply ship. Rommel attacked at Alam Halfa with 20% of the fuel he needed. By the morning of the 2nd of September, it had stalled for lack of petrol. The German Naval Command in Italy wrote that Malta had to be eliminated. It never was. Captain Mason was awarded the George Cross after a torpedo, a broken keel, and a wrecked engine room. The citation says this: "All next day, progress somehow continued. She broke in 2 at her berth and never sailed again. Her wheel and her nameplate are in a museum in Valletta. Go look at them." For the war stories almost nobody tells, subscribe. Next time, a destroyer rams a cruiser 10 times its size.